Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is November 28th, and right now we're looking at the visible satellite imagery. You can see we did have some fog across western Washington, western Oregon. It was freezing fog out there as well. Roads were pretty darn right slick, and look at this dense fog butted up against the east slopes of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon, including the Tri-Cities out there. Actually, some freezing precipitation falling from the sky as well. This inversions, when they get strong enough here, they can wring out some of that moisture, and if the air is below freezing, yeah, you can get some frosty stuff falling from the sky, and you can kind of see how socked in we are across some of the valleys of the Panhandle of Idaho and western Montana. Not much movement in a lot of this fog activity, but that is going to be clearing up here over the next few days. We start to bring some stronger frontal systems into the area, but man, look at that. It is socked in across some portions of British Columbia, especially east and northwest Montana. You can see some fog across eastern Oregon here as well. Now, taking a look at why the air stagnation. Of course, you get calm winds and the inversion sets up here because you get the colder air that kind of sinks into the lower elevations. You got the warmer air aloft, acts as a lid and holds that cold air close to the ground here. And you can kind of see it in this picture, how this house is, it's got a fire going on here, and it comes up and hits the inversion there, and it can't rise up any higher there. So yeah, that's what they're dealing with, mainly for some places east of the Cascades especially. And this is a 5-day outlook, a return to some more active weather coming up here. National Weather Service, Pendleton, Oregon, picking up on that as we go through Friday and Saturday. Got some snow coming up as we go on into the weekend. And then we got some issues coming up here, folks, because we have some strong storm systems moving into the Pacific Northwest, perhaps windy, wet storm systems as well with a lot of rainfall. Dive into those details as we go through the video here. Look at Seattle, 28 degrees yesterday morning here, and another very cold morning. Again, the fourth straight day at my house here next to SeaTac with some freezing fog. No precipitation and none coming for the next couple of days, but it will be coming in here eventually as we go towards the end of the week. And we'll be playing catch up because the average for November is about 6.3 inches of rain, and we're going to have trouble getting there. But we're going to start off December extremely wet. I'll also showing here in a moment. And if you want to check out a nice affordable home weather station, click on that link down below to save 10% off. It's easy to set up. It's great smartphone apps, all solar powered and wireless. Ultrasonic anemometer, great station, highly recommend. And if you want to learn how to storm chase there, the Girls Who Chase virtual spring training is March 2nd next year. And they're also having this. It's coming up tonight. It's a conversation about what it takes to make as a full-time storm chaser. Even if you don't want to become a storm chaser, it's pretty interesting listening to what storm chasers have to go through on a daily basis when out there in the plains trying to sell their video information. They're trying to sell their videos, their storm chasing videos. They're trying to make YouTube channels. It's tough to make it as a storm chaser, but it's pretty tight knit community, pretty fun. You can see Reed Timmer is going to be there as well. This is my friend Jen Walton, who runs this Girls Who Chase, the website and the Twitter page here. So thought I'd give a shout out for that. Now taking a look at the HER 3KM. This is this morning. If I put this into motion, you can see this fog burning off, actually underdoing a lot of the fog across eastern Washington there as well. And as we go on in through tomorrow morning, you can see the redevelopment and probably just as dense here as we go through tomorrow morning for eastern Washington. Again, fog will reform across some of the Willamette Valley and the Puget Sound, and it could be of the freezing fog variety also. Then we start to get the next frontal system rolling in here, which is finally going to stir up these inversions here across much of the Pacific Northwest. Now, looking at the GFS, we're looking at precipitable water, and you can see, of course, across the tropics and the subtropics down there, rich, deep moisture. And you can see the storm system diving into California here. And as it makes its trek down the coastline there, we've got a Kona storm over the Hawaiian Islands here that's developing as we speak. And it's bringing some heavy precipitation as we go through this week. And then that moisture is going to merge with the jet stream, and it is going to slam into the Pacific Northwest. We've got several strong frontal systems rolling in, and then a potentially dramatic atmospheric river that's going to be rolling in early next week. We'll take a look at that in some detail here as we go through the video, but you can see pretty sinister looking atmospheric river as we go on into the mid portion of the upcoming week here as well. Now looking at the GFS 12Z, this is 6-hour precipitation type. There's a storm off the coast of California, and you can see the Hawaiian Islands down there dealing with their Kona storm, rain heavy at times, thunderstorm activity. And then we've got our frontal system, kind of a decaying front as we go through the day Thursday, approaching the coastline, kind of falling apart, and a stronger frontal system as we go through the day Friday, and kind of continuing some of this onshore flow. Precipitation, not bad amounts at that initial system there. Then quickly another system on its heels as we go through later on on Sunday, and then the big one comes rolling in here as we go through sometime on the day Monday. This looks to be arriving here, and this could be windy for some areas as well. But look at that atmospheric river just pointed right at Washington State for a lot of this time as we go on into the midweek portion here. So we got a lot to worry about here, folks, and I'm going to show you why, more detail on that here in a bit. But looking at the GFS, this is the jet stream. Take a look at that storm system moving into California, and then we've got some frontal systems arriving. The one on Friday looks to be a bit stronger right there. And then we're going to have another system coming in, and then we get that cone of low, some subtropical moisture really gets entrained in the jet stream here and points right at the Pacific Northwest again as we go through the early portion of next week into the mid portion of next week coming up. Now, looking at the precipitation totals, I just went and sped this ahead because this is the GFS this morning, and you can see Seattle, look at that, 8.3 inches. I mean, and look at some of these totals across some of the Cascades, the Olympic Mountains, Vancouver Island, all the way down the Oregon coast, Oregon Cascades, and look at the dramatic rain shadowing effect here across eastern Oregon and Washington. And look at the ensemble run here too for the GFS. The average of all 30 has very wet solution here coming up as we go on in through the next week to 10 days or so. Now, looking at the European ensembles, also agrees on some pretty wet periods coming up here. And look at the one is that a nasty atmospheric river points to the Pacific Northwest, showing some pretty impressive precipitation amounts in the individual ensemble run, some of them up over 2 inches here. And even the control run has, several bouts of some moderate to heavy precipitation here rolling into the Pacific Northwest. Of course, it's going to change a bit, but we're starting to get some agreement here on that atmospheric river in the beginning portion of next week, sometime on the day Monday. And look at the GFS actually ensemble, the 06Z, and you can see some pretty nice precipitation amounts rolling in here. And check out this one member kind of doing its own thing here. Actually had over 17 inches of rain by the time we got to mid-December. Purely a fantasy forecast here, but you can see what some of these ensembles do sometimes, and that's kind of what we want the ensembles to do. We want to see just what is possible out there, but you can see the control in the mean kind of calling for somewhere around 5 inches by the time you get towards the following weekend coming up here. But the 12Z run did come in hotter and heavier with the precipitation here, so we got to watch for that. This is the European as of yesterday afternoon. You can see as when you get out towards December 11th, 12th, the mean is up over 5 inches, so that's a pretty good shot of precipitation for the early portion of December, and some of these ensemble members have more, and you can see the control run just over 4 inches during that time frame. Astoria Regional Airport out there, and you can kind of see these big precipitation makers rolling in as we go on in through next week in the early portion. And actually the system that rolls in on the day Friday is going to be pretty darn wet as well. You can see 1 inch in that 24-hour period, 1.1, 2.1, 1.9, 1.1, 1.3. So we have the potential for some flooding coming up here as well. Now, looking at Paradise Mount Rainier, I wanted to show you guys this because we have a pretty good shot of snow coming up through this weekend. And look at the freezing levels clearly down to the ski area there, or probably a Crystal Mountain ski area in Paradise, whatnot. The parking lot up there on Mount Rainier, the visitor center is going to be getting some pretty good snowfall amounts. But look at this atmospheric river really brings that freezing level up to 9,500, maybe 10,000 feet as we go through the day Monday on into Tuesday morning. So that could be some real flooding concerns here across Pacific Northwest. Now, looking at Paradise and the ensembles for the European, and look at some of these totals. The mean is up over 10 inches by the time we get on towards the mid portion of next week. Of course, some of the ensembles higher and lower there, and the control run around 10 inches by the time we get towards next weekend. So huge amounts of precipitation showing up in some of these runs. Also, we've got some wind coming up here as well. Look at some of Tillamook, Oregon showing up some of these bigger solutions here with some wind gusts here, kind of still sporadically thrown about the ensemble runs here, but we're starting to look at a bit of a windier chance here coming through the early portion of next week as well. Still fantasy right now. We don't have that much agreement on exactly what's coming, but probably some pretty gusty winds rolling on through the day here as we go on in through Friday for starters. And this is Seattle, Tacoma. You can see some bigger windstorms kind of intermixed here. Again, still in the fantasy stage right now, but definitely the potential for some wind coming up here also. Now, this is looking at ensemble member number 2, and I just wanted to kind of show you what a lot of members are showing is that a deep low moving into southeast Alaska, and you can see this ridging, this high pressure kind of down by Salt Lake City over the Great Basin, the Intermountain West. So you can imagine the huge pressure difference here, and look at some of these pressure gradients have been setting up along the Washington, Oregon coast, and some of that diving inland here as well. So that's what we could be looking at here with the potential for some wind as we go. And still some of the members are showing a strong low diving somewhere into Vancouver Island or Western Washington as well. We'll continue to watch that day by day. Here's the GFS, usually very conservative with its wind speeds here, but you can see as we go through that Monday into Tuesday morning period here with some increased potential for some wind as well. Now, looking at the European, this is last night's run. Here we go with the California storm dropping down the coast. Then we get our decaying front here as we go on and through the day Thursday. That would be Thursday afternoon if I stop it there. Now the next frontal system is stronger. It'd be rolling on in through the day Friday here, and you can kind of see this prolonged period of precipitation as we go into the Friday night. Now we're moving into Saturday morning. Still continues across a lot of the Pacific Northwest here, not giving us much of a break across some of the mountain areas especially, and Oregon looks to be kind of targeted here by this system. And then we go into Saturday afternoon. Precipitation continues. The next system hot on the heels with that, bringing another huge round of precipitation here across the area. I mean, look at Oregon just getting hammered with some totals as we go on in through Sunday late morning, then Sunday afternoon finally tapering off. We get a tiny bit of a break here by Monday morning, but then the big atmospheric river really comes in here and has its eyes on Southwest BC, Western Washington, Oregon, and this could bounce back and forth. So it could really impact anywhere between British Columbia down towards Oregon, even southern or northern California here. And then you can see that kind of pushing through, and the European wants to continue to throw some additional systems our way as we go towards the end of the week. And look at that low pressure system out there kind of filling and weakening as it approaches the coastline, but still bringing another round of precip there. But that's way off in fantasy land. We'll worry about that as we get closer. This is the European ensemble mean as yesterday afternoon. Look at Seattle, about 5 inches here. And this is December 12th, what I would be showing here. So I've just kind of extended it out, kind of showing you what's upcoming here as we go through the next couple of weeks or so. And you can see the huge amounts along the coastal mountains there and the Cascades and Vancouver Island and Southwest BC, and the big rain shadowing, the huge difference between precipitation here. For example, for Moses Lake versus, Paradise, Mount Rainier, or on the Olympic Mountains out there, huge differences. And there is going to be some rain shadowing, of course, to the northeast of the Olympic Mountains here with the strong southwest flow and atmospheric river potential, kind of highlighting that little bit of maybe more than a little bit actually, of a rain shadowing event going on across some of Whidbey Island and the San Juans. Pretty typical in these atmospheric river scenarios out of the southwest. Total snow couture ratio, if I put this into motion, look what's coming on the GFS. Look at some of this snow as we go through Friday night into Saturday. Strong onshore flow, cold air aloft, bringing some huge amounts of snowfall potentially to the Cascades. And then the bad news is watch. The snow just stops. And why is that? Because this atmospheric river is very warm that's coming after it. And it's going to really rise the snow levels and the freezing levels as we go on in through Monday and Tuesday coming up here. Now, this kind of shows I'll show you something else here in a moment, but this is the European as of last night. Total snow, 10-to-1 ratio. And you'll clearly see the big snowfall incoming here as we go through Friday into Saturday evening here, and look at these huge amounts. But then you'll notice it also cuts off here for a lot of the region as we go through the Monday, Tuesday time frame with the very warm atmospheric river. Now, looking at snow depth, this is GFS. I've sped this ahead to very early Sunday morning, the big snowfalls, and we got some nice snow depth up there across the higher terrain. But watch what happens as we go on into later Sunday. Notice that melting. Look at that by the time we get to Tuesday morning. The snow depth really gets shrunk, and that's because that atmospheric river will not only be dropping huge amounts of precipitation, but it will be melting a lot of the snow across the Oregon and the Washington Cascades, even across some of Southwest BC is going to go above freezing for the higher terrain as well. So that's the flooding threat incoming through next week. This is Paradise, Mount Rainier. Look at some of these totals here. This is 24 hours snow, 10-to-1 ratio. And some model, the GFS is showing up towards 2 feet. Probably not going to be quite that much. And the ensemble mean, though, is still up, 18, 19 inches or so here. So big mountain snows in advance of a very warm atmospheric river is not a good combination. This is looking at Stevens Pass. You can see this cross section. The top of this is at 10,000 feet. This is about 5,000 feet up in the atmosphere, but of course, Stevens Pass around 4,000 feet. So you can see the surface is going to be below freezing here. The snow's going to pile up here across a lot of the mountain areas. And then look at this atmospheric river brings that freezing level all the way back up towards 10,000 feet by the time we go through the day, Monday into Tuesday morning. Whistler, something similar here as well. Nice couple rounds of snow incoming. but also the potential for going back above freezing here as you go on in through the afternoon on Monday. And here's the 6 to 10 day precipitation or temperature probability outlook here. And with that southwest flow, of course, we're going to be above average here for much of the region. And 6 to 10 day precipitation, you don't need to be a meteorologist after looking at what we just saw to know that we're going to be in the above average category here. And this is looking at the experimental product, goes through December 11th. Slight chance here for some heavy precipitation, of course. Goes without saying, risk of heavy snow across some of the Cascades down towards maybe the Sierra Nevada and some of the Rocky Mountains out there as well. And then the risk of high winds includes much of the west here also. So this goes December 5th through 7th, kind of the highlight there. And I also wanted to show this as well, the U.S. seasonal drought outlook here. This was released, 12 days ago now, but it does show that we should still remain in drought, but it is going to be improving here across the Cascades of Washington and Oregon. However, the drought should persist for some of the east slopes of the Cascades, some of eastern Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Panhandle, Northwest Montana. So anyway, yeah, interesting stuff coming up here. It's going to be fun weather watching. I'll be watching model run by model run as always and trying to break this down, and we'll see just how sinister this is going to be. We still have time to back things off, or maybe the atmospheric river will target BC or western Washington or Oregon, and maybe other areas will kind of catch a break here. But it looks like some pretty good snowfall amounts in advance of a very warm atmospheric river, and that needs to be watched closely. We'll continue to break it down day by day. Hope you guys are liking these videos. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this again tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys then.